I'm John White. Today we're going to be talking about some of the things you can be doing for the month of June in the southern part of the state. And one of the big things is spider mites. And all our evergreens, junipers, cypresses have a problem or can be a potential site for spider mite infestation. And what we want to do is make a periodic check of our plants to see if we have spider mites on them. And what we need to do is just take a white piece of cardboard or white piece of paper, put it underneath one of the branches, and then give it a real strong wrap. And that'll dislodge the spider mites onto the piece of paper. You can take a finger and just kind of rub it, and if you get some smears on the paper, those are spider mites. The spider mites can be seen moving on the paper. They're very, very small, but you can see them. And the way to control them is best just with plain water. Spray the plant down with water, give it a good hosing. If it's a very thick plant, give it a strong blast of water, dislodge the mites and wash them off the plant. If you have trouble getting the mites under control, you may have to go to a miticide. And miticides, one of the problems is that we develop resistance in the mites very quickly, so we don't want to indiscriminately spray with a miticide. So let's try the water first. But they do get on a lot of different plants at this time of year, so you want to go through and kind of check your plants periodically. But if you do the paper test, that's a quick way to check them. Another thing for the month is we're starting to see a lot of weeds pop up. Our warm season weeds are starting to come along, and one of the big ones is crabgrass. And crabgrass is a fairly thick-bladed grass that has a head much like a Bermuda grass head. It can creep down underneath the Bermuda and kind of come up at different points. It'll a lot of times root itself at the joints, and it can take over a yard pretty good. One of the things that we can use is the MSMA material for crabgrass on Bermuda grass. You want to make sure that you read the label, follow the directions very carefully, and that'll help to take care of the crabgrass. So just again, read the instructions, be real careful with the material, but this is what you want to use on crabgrass. Some of the other weeds that we might have showing up in cracks and crevices of our sidewalks, Roundup is a systemic material that can be carried down into the root system of weeds to take those out. If you have a rock landscape, a rock yard, and you have some weeds coming in, use one of these materials because this is much safer on the environment and you still get a good kill. Another product out there is Finale. Finale is not a systemic, it's a contact herbicide. So if you have some weeds that are annuals, you can spray this, it'll kill them out, they won't come back. But if you have hard to kill perennials, then you want to use the Roundup material. So these are a couple materials out on the market. Tomatoes are a very, very popular vegetable. They are beginning to bloom, and a lot of people have some small fruit on them. One of the things that we want to remember that, this spring has been pretty windy, so we haven't had too much of a problem, but tomatoes do need to be wind pollinated. So if you've got your tomato in an area where you're not getting much wind, then you want to come in and just bang the flowers, and that's knocking some of the pollen loose and helps to pollinate the plant. So that's kind of a tip to keep them in production, because as we get hotter, our production is going to drop. So anything you can do to help build up the bloom on the plant and get a better set, you'll have more tomatoes. So we want to do that. Also on our vegetable gardens, we need to put in a periodic fertilizing. So whether you use organic or inorganic sources for fertilizer, we do want to add a little bit of extra fertilizer just as a booster in the garden. So we want to make sure that we are keeping that nutrition level in the soil going good. So again, use a general purpose fertilizer for that. I have a rose here. One of the big problems with roses in the southern part of the state, as we start getting hot, the bloom cycle on that changes quite a bit. We don't get as much bloom, and a lot of our blooms begin to blast like this, where they get a lot of dry edges on them. Some of this can be due to heat, but if we break this open, we'll find probably a little insect called a thrips. And this is a little tiny insect that gets itself down inside the bud and starts feeding on the petals of the bud, and the bud does not open completely. And so you get this kind of half-open bloom with a lot of burn on it, and that's usually due to thrips. keep those cut off and throw these away. Don't throw them right down underneath the plant. Get them out of there because they can be sources of reinfestation. So we want to make sure that we take care of the roses. They do need a periodic feeding also. Again, production's going to slow down during the heat, and then it'll pick back up after the end of the summer when we start cooling off. So, but again, put a little bit of fertilizer on those during the summer months. And then another plant that's fairly common in the area is Pyracantha or firethorn, and there's many different varieties of Pyracantha. They're used a lot for for screening. They have fairly sharp barbs on them. This plant is very susceptible to fire blight, and fire blight is a bacterial disease, can run rampant. So when we're shearing these or pruning them, we want to make sure that we dip our tools in either an alcohol solution or a 10% Clorox solution, and that way that'll help to prevent the spread of fire blight. We get questions about the berries on Pyracanthas, as whether they're poisonous or not, and the berries are not poisonous. You don't want to eat a whole lot of them, but wildlife likes to feed on them. Birds love them, and there are some recipes out there for Pyracantha jelly and jam. So you can use them for that, but again, you don't want to eat a whole lot of those. So, but there are several things that we can be doing in the garden this month. Another one is lawns. Lawns need to be fertilized, especially the warm season grasses, so be sure and get some fertilizer on at least once a month in an actively growing lawn, and that'll help to keep it green and growing. So hopefully those are some tips that'll help you make it through the summer, and we'll see you again next month.